everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Repeat Ron, and today we're going to be doing another tier list, but this one's going to be a bit different than our other Deep Rock Galactic tier list. This is going to be a tier list looking at every single overclock in the game and ranking them according to how fun I personally find them. So this is going to be an extremely subjective list. My definition of fun may not be your definition of fun, as well as a lot of these overclocks probably aren't going to do particularly well, at least the clean overclocks, because most of them just make the gun a little bit better than what it normally is, which that can make it better, and certain weapons are very fun by themselves, but adding just a little bit doesn't really make it that much more fun. So even though a overclock might be really good, it may not be all that exciting. It might score lower, and something that isn't very good but is a lot of fun to play around with might score much higher. So our first one up here is lightweight rounds. This is for our stubby submachine gun. This gives us more maximum ammo at the cost of losing damage and losing rate of fire. This one I actually like quite a bit. It does function pretty well. It's nice to have a whole lot more ammunition for the submachine gun because I tend to spray it out like crazy. And this helps. The lower rate of fire I don't notice, and the base damage isn't that big a deal. In terms of fun though, it's just kind of basic, but still good. So I think I'd put it into C tier. Up next we have compact rounds for the engineer, which is for the grenade launcher. This gives you more maximum ammo at the cost of smaller explosion radius and less area damage. More ammo for the grenade launcher is always a good thing, and I like this one quite a lot because the grenade launcher itself is really fun to use. So I'd probably put this one into B tier. The RJ250 compound, this is for the grenade launcher as well. This makes it so you can launch yourself into the air with it, and this one is probably one of the funnest overclocks. You do get much more ammunition for the grenade launcher. Your reload time is cut down, but you lose out on a lot more damage from your grenade launcher, and that's because you're essentially turning it into a tool. And a tool to fling yourself across the map is always going to be a fun thing. Dangerous, but fun. So I'm going to put this one up into S tier. Next we got return to sender. This is for the breech cutter, where you can fire out one of your lines and then have it return back to you, so long as you do it fast enough. There is a certain length where if the line goes too far, you cannot pull it back, and you'll just shoot a second line out. So you do have to get used to the timing of this, but this is a very interesting mechanic, and it actually lets you hit enemies in kind of unique ways. You can hit an enemy forward and then have it recoil backwards as it hits enemies behind you. I do like that quite a bit. That does make it very interesting, and I'd probably put return to sender up into A tier. High voltage crossover is another overclock for the breech cutter. This one cuts down on your magazine size by a little bit, but it makes it so you have electricity in your breech cutter, which is really good. Electricity is a really good effect, and you don't really lose much for taking this. Zapping enemies and slowing them down and dealing more damage over time is always going to be a good thing, so I'm going to put this one probably up into B tier, because in terms of fun, it's a little bit more fun, but it's not exciting like some of the other overclocks. Up next we have fuel stream diffuser. This is for the flamethrower. This gives your flamethrower much longer reach, but it makes it so you will not be able to spray out fuel as fast. That's not necessarily a bad thing, and spraying fire all the way across the map is really fun. Going with a very long-range flamethrower build is pretty funny to be just spraying all over the place, especially if you do it with sticky fire too. It feels like it's like a real flamethrower then. And I do like this one. Even though I think it's probably one of the weakest overclocks for the flamethrower, it's probably one of the funnest, so I'm going to put it up into A tier. Flow rate expansion, this is for the cryo cannon. This one is a weird one. It makes it so you can gain pressure faster and you can spray out your ice faster, but you essentially overheat or drop the pressure of your weapon faster. So it changes the way that the weapon works, but honestly I don't think it's all that great, nor did I find it super fun to use. I found it more frustrating than anything, so I think this is going to be our very first deep overclock. Nothing super great about it. Next we have exhaust vectoring. This is for the minigun. This increases your damage but also increases your spread, which I was wrong about this overclock when I first made the gunner build. You guys were right saying that it is a good one, because if you take the level 1 perk, that makes it so you pretty much have the base spread of the minigun. It's not all that bad and you're just getting more damage. And this one does make the minigun even better. The minigun's a really fun weapon, but just slightly increasing its damage isn't anything crazy. So I think I'd probably put this one into C tier. Carpet bombers next. This is for the autocannon. This gives you more splash damage and more splash radius, which is really fun. It's very fun to bomb enemies, and the autocannon's quite good at that. Adding carpet bomber in there is super fun. It doesn't change up the autocannon that much, but it is a nice touch, so I'm going to put this one up into A tier as well. We have combat mobility. This one makes your autocannon feel much better when you're shooting it. When you're running around, you shoot it and you can move around quicker while you're shooting it, which is a good thing. The downsides are very minimal, and I think it's a very fun overclock, even though I don't use it a whole lot. I'd probably put this one up into A tier. Up next we have volatile bullets. This makes it so your minigun turns into kind of a flamethrower at close range, which is really awesome. I really like this one. It is a strong overclock, and it is super fun to use, so I'm going to put this one up into S tier. Next, we got 6-shooter. This turns your regular revolver, or your 4-shot revolver, into a proper revolver holding 6 shots. This is a lot of fun to spam fire at enemies. I enjoy doing that with most weapons. This makes it so the revolver's quite good at that, and it's a pretty decent overclock. I would put this one probably also up into A tier. Next, we have compact mags. This is for the burst pistol. This one is pretty basic. You do get a good amount of ammunition with your burst pistol, which is a really good thing, and I like using it for that reason. In terms of fun factor, it's, again, nothing super special, so I'd probably put this one into C tier. Next, we have experimental rounds for the burst pistol. This gives you more damage. You lose out on ammo, though, and you lose out on magazine size. That does make the pistol actually pretty fun to use because you get more burst damage, so when you pull it out, you can spray it a bit faster. Feels more like a submachine gun then, and I like it. I like it alright, so I'd put this one into B tier. Overclocked firing mechanism. This is for the assault rifle. This gives you 3 more rate of fire, but doubles your recoil. The recoil still is not that bad to manage, and the rate of fire does feel really good with the gun. I like going full rate of fire assault rifle, because even though you do burn through the clip really fast, you can destroy enemies extremely quick with it. So I'd put this one probably up into B tier. We have Bullets of Mercy next. This one's a very interesting one, because this one gives you essentially more damage. The enemy has to be suffering from some sort of side effect, which is almost always going to be the case in most missions. Something's going to be on fire, something's going to be taking poison damage, something's going to be frozen, whatever it might be. It works out really well. That being said, even though it is a really good overclock, it doesn't really change the way the assault rifle works, so just because it's good, I'm going to put it into B tier, but other than that, it's pretty standard. Up next is Active Stability System. This is for the M1000 rifle. This makes it so you can move around faster while you are focusing in, and your focus speed is increased. This comes at the cost of reload speed, which isn't too bad, and this does make it pretty fun to be running around full speed with the rifle held out so you can actually hit enemies on the run using your powered shots. So I like that, and I think I'm going to put this one up into B tier. Up next we have Hipster. Hipster is one of my favorite overclocks. Turning the rifle into just a complete spam machine, you get so much ammunition, you get so much rate of fire, and you have so little recoil that is so much fun to use the M1000 like that. I'd put Hipster up into S tier. Next we have Shaped Shells. This is for the double barrel. This makes it so you have a much tighter spread with the double barrel, which is actually really fun to use. You can actually snipe enemies from a surprising distance with a shotgun, where shots that you wouldn't even think about taking with the double barrel regularly, if you throw shaped shells on there, you can actually hit them pretty effectively at most ranges. I would put shaped shells probably up into A tier in terms of fun. Next we have custom casings. This gives you more ammunition for your submachine guns, which is always a good thing because they can chew through ammo very quick. It also reduces the rate of fire, which is also not necessarily a bad thing because they chew through ammo so quick. This does make the submachine guns feel a bit slower, which is kind of nice, makes them a little bit easier to control, and you have more shots in them so you can hold down the triggers longer. I like it overall. I'd put this one into B tier. Next up we have compact feed valve. This is for the flamethrower. This makes it so you have a larger tank overall and more fuel. You lose out on flame reach and you lose out on reload speed. This one's, again, a good overclock, but it's not really exciting or anything. The flamethrower kind of has a lot of overclocks that are like that, where they're good, but not particularly exciting in any way. So I would put this one probably up into C tier. It's perfectly fine. We have compact feed mechanism. This is for the minigun, and this gives you a ton more bullets for the minigun and reduces your rate of fire. Reducing the rate of fire of the minigun is not a big deal. You still shoot it very fast, and having tons of extra bullets is really nice. The only problem is you might overheat it. So I'd probably put this one also up into B tier. It's kind of nice. Up next we have a very unique one, which is Ice Spear. This is for the cryo cannon. This makes it so you can shoot an ice spear from your gun. This doesn't really come at any major negative, except for you running through ammo faster, because this does eat up a lot of ammo to shoot the ice spear. But the ice spear is super fun to use. You can kind of try to snipe enemies, even though it's a little bit difficult with the projectile speed. I would put Ice Spear probably up into S tier too, because it makes the gun so unique. Next is Oversized Magazine. This just makes it so your magazine is really big with the pistol at the cost of rate of fire. A really good one, a very simple one, a very basic one, I would probably put this one also into C tier. Heat Pipe makes your charge shots cost less ammo and you charge up faster, although you can overheat your weapon faster with Heat Pipe. This one I kind of like because it allows me to just keep shooting charge shots if I want to with the plasma pistol, which is usually the way I prefer to use it, as opposed to just spam firing the regular shots. This one is really nice. I don't think it's anything real flashy, though. I'd probably put this one into B tier. Heavy Hitter's next. Heavy Hitter makes it so you can spam the pistol pretty well, and I like doing that with the plasma pistol. It's not bad, and this does make it more fun, but again, nothing crazy, so I'm going to put it into B tier. Magnetic pellet alignment is for the engineer's shotgun. This makes it so your spread is much tighter, at the cost of rate of fire, I believe. I really like this one. This one is really useful for the shotgun. It makes it so you can actually hit enemies from a distance. I like being able to hit enemies from a distance with a shotgun. That does make it feel a bit more realistic, I guess. I know we're still dwarves fighting bugs, but I kind of like my shotguns to have some sort of range. And this one's pretty good. I'd probably put this one up into A tier. Up next, we have the RE Refire Booster. This is for the submachine gun, Stubby, that Engineer has. This makes it so you have a higher rate of fire and you can electrocute things more, although you get more spread. This kind of embraces everything that the submachine gun is good and sort of bad at. Submachine gun in the first place doesn't have that much accuracy, but it does have a lot of rate of fire, and if you equip this with a large magazine, it is pretty fun just to keep spraying this. So I'd probably put this one also up into A tier. You know what, I just realized something. I said volatile bullets was burning hell earlier, or I described it as burning hell. Whoops. This one is for the revolver. The volatile bullets is for the revolver, and it does more damage, or it lets you do more damage towards burning targets, which is a lot of fun. I do like that, especially if you combine it with the burning hell, but it doesn't really change the revolver all that much. So I think I'd put this one in B tier, and I'd move burning hell up to S tier for the reasons previously discussed. Sorry about that, I did mix those two up. So this one turns your minigun essentially into a flamethrower at close range, which is very fun. Up next we have lightweight magazines. This is for the shotgun for Engineer. This one's pretty good as an actual overclock because it tackles some of the problems the shotgun has, mainly with its ammo, so you get more ammunition and it has a faster reload time, which does make the shotgun feel much better. So I'd probably put this one up into B tier just because of the weapon that it goes on. It does make the shotgun feel better. Up next we have Stunner, also for the shotgun. This increases your chance of stunning, and you get bonus damage when you're hitting a stun target. Also very good, and stunning enemies is pretty useful. Does make the shotgun more fun. I'd put it also into B tier. For Stubby, we have Super Slam Rounds. This makes it so you have larger magazines and you have less base spread. That does help out quite a bit. Having less base spread makes it so the submachine gun does feel much better, and having extra rounds is never going to be a bad thing. So I'd put this one also into B tier. We have Well-Oiled Machine next. This one increases your rate of fire and decreases your reload. Both great things, and Stubby can embrace the faster rate of fire, so I would say it goes also up into B tier. Well, maybe I'd put this one into C tier, because it doesn't change it that much. It's not as much as like the Refire Booster that also gives you electricity damage, which is really nice. For the Grenade Launcher, we have Clean Sweep. This increases your area damage and area radius. Like I said, blowing stuff up is always fun with the Grenade Launcher, and even though it is kind of basic, I'm still going to probably put it into C tier because it is useful. Pack Rat's up next. You get more ammo. Kind of a very boring one for the Grenade Launcher, but it is for the Grenade Launcher, which is very fun. I'd put this one down into D tier just for fun because, yeah, I get 2 more explosions, but I kind of wish it had something more added onto it. Then we have lightweight casings for the Breech Cutter. This just gives you more ammo and faster reload speed. Again, kind of a boring one for the Breech Cutter, but it is a strong weapon. I'd probably put this one into D tier. We have Roll Control. This is a very interesting one. When you fire the Breech Cutter and you hold down the trigger or the mouse, whatever it might be, then you start rotating the whole line of the Breech Cutter, which is very interesting and unique. I like this one a lot, even though I'm not sure how practically good it is. It seems decent on certain missions and with certain builds, but I'm not sure if it really gives the Breech Cutter all that much more damage. Super fun though. I'd probably put this one up into A tier. And then we have Strong Plasma Current. This just gives you more damage, and the projectile lasts a little bit longer. Both nice things, but don't really change the way that the Breech Cutter plays all that much. I'm going to put this one into C tier because having more damage is nice and you can rip through things a bit quicker. For the flamethrower for driller, we have lighter tanks. This gives you more max ammo. Again, a pretty boring one, so it's going to go into D tier. And then we have sticky additive. This gives you 1 more sticky flame duration and 1 more damage. Both being really good on the flamethrower, and having your flames last longer is pretty cool. So I would put this one probably into C tier because it is still kind of basic. It doesn't change the way that you use the weapon a whole lot. For the cryo cannon, we have improved thermal efficiency. This increases your tank size and increases your pressure drop rate, or decreases it, depending on how you look at it. So again, another kind of boring one, but good for the cryo cannon, and it's probably one of their better ones. I would still put it into D tier for fun, though. Doesn't really change the cryo cannon all that much, especially for how much the cryo cannon can be changed, as we'll see in a little bit. Perfectly tuned cooler is here. I guess this is still when it was a clean overclock rather than a balanced one. It should be a balanced one. So this gives you increased freezing power and increased flow rate at the cost of charge up time and pressure gain. This one is probably the most practical one for the cryo cannon. It's really useful, as well as the efficiency is really useful, but it doesn't really change the way the cryo cannon works. So I would probably put this one to C tier because it's good and it is nice. It's a little bit noticeable how quickly you can freeze enemies. Up next is Driller's Pistol. This has chain hit, which makes it so when you hit a weak spot, there's a 75% chance that it will ricochet into another enemy. I like ricochets. I think it's a cool mechanic. I would put this one up into A tier. We have Homebrew Powder, which randomizes your damage, whether you're going to deal as low as 80% of your base damage all the way up to 140% of your base damage. This one's a fun one to go with because it's always fun to roll the dice, but it can be rather infuriating when it constantly doesn't go your way. And I don't think the pistol's one of the best weapons to be using Homebrew Powder. So I think I'd put this one into B tier. Even though it is fun, I don't find myself taking it all that often. Up next we have the Plasma Pistol. This is energy rerouting as our first one, which gives us a faster charge speed and a larger battery. Both of those are good things, but only the charge speed really changes the gun a little bit. So I'd put this one into C tier. Next we have Magnetic Cooling. This cools down your weapon faster and makes it so it doesn't build up heat as quick. That's not really all that interesting or fun. A lot of people have also said that this is kind of a crutch perk, or a crutch overclock, where you really shouldn't be overheating your gun, or if you are going to overheat your gun anyway, just charge it up to shoot it, or shoot a couple times and then use the charge and then switch to your... And I kind of understand that. I'd put Magnetic Cooling into D tier. Up next we have the miniguns, Overclocks. We have a little more oomph, which gives you a little bit more damage and faster spin-up rate. Good things for the minigun, but again, nothing super flashy. I'd put this one into C tier. And we have Thin Drum Walls. This increases your maximum ammo and increases your cooling rate. I like having a lot of ammo for the minigun, and it does make it feel much better. But again, pretty basic when it comes to actually changing the weapon. For the autocannon, we have Composite Drums. This gives you more ammunition and a faster reload. Both being really good things, but not being super fun or anything, so I'd put this one into D tier. Splintering Shells gives you more AoE damage and a larger effect radius. I do like this one a lot, and I would probably put this one up into B tier. I think it's one of the better clean overclocks, at least in terms of fun. The Bulldog Revolver's first one is the Chain Hit, which is the same as the Driller's Pistol, 75% chance, so it's going to go right up there next to it. And we have Homebrew Powder, which is no longer a clean overclock, it is a balanced overclock. This makes it so you have a random chance between 75% and 200% of dealing damage with the revolver. I like this one because it has much bigger odds and it's much more of a gamble. So I'd put this higher up in terms of fun. Next we have the Burst Pistol, which has composite casings, more max ammo, more rate of fire. Good, but probably C tier. And then Full Seal Chamber, more damage, 1 more damage, and a faster reload. Good again, you can change up your build a little bit, so C tier. For the G2, we have Compact Ammo. This gives you a larger magazine and less recoil. Good things, but again, nothing super special, so C tier. Gas Rerouting gives you faster rate of fire and a faster reload speed. Again, good things, and I'd probably put it also in C tier. And then we have Homebrew Powder, which randomizes your damage, and I don't really like randomizing the damage with the Assault Rifle, because there's just such a high chance of low rolling unless you build it for damage, and then that kind of defeats the purpose of having the gamble in the first place. So it's not as fun a gamble as some of the other gambling perks. I think I'd probably put it into B tier. The M1000 is next with Overclock. This makes it so you can hover in the air while you're charging up the rifle to do a focus shot. I really like this one. It's surprisingly useful and it's super fun. It does change the rifle quite a bit. I would put this one also up into S tier because it is so much fun. Minimal magazines, on the other hand, gives you a larger clip and faster reload speed, both of which are very good things. They do kind of change the way that you can build the rifle, and I'd probably put this one a little bit higher up into B tier, because I do find myself using it more. Next, we have the double barrels overclocks. We have compact shells. This gives you more max ammo and a faster reload. Good, but again, nothing super fancy. Actually, I'm going to put this one into D tier. I don't think it gives you that much extra value. Double barrel makes it so you get one more damage, but you have to fire out both barrels every time you shoot it, which I'm kind of torn on this one, because this one I would say is the worst overclock for the double barrel shotgun and probably one of the weakest overclocks in the game. But it is still kind of fun to blast both barrels into certain enemies, so I think I'm going to put this one into C tier. We have special powder next. This makes it so you can go all over the place with your shotgun. If you aim the shotgun at the ground and fire while you're jumping, it will fling you in the opposite direction, and the best part is it's a double barrel, so you can do it twice. Super fun, and probably S tier. Then we have stuffed shells. This gives you one more damage, one more pellet. Very useful overclock, but doesn't really change the way that you use the shotgun. I'd still probably put it into B tier because it is so nice. And then our last one is minimal magazines for the Zukovs. This gives you faster rate of fire and a faster reload speed. Good. I like using that with the Zukovs, but nothing way crazy, so C tier. So first up, we have the Warthog from the Engineer. This is Cycle Overload, which increases your maximum rate of fire and your damage, while reducing your reload speed and increasing your spread. This one can be really fun because if you get really close, you can spam fire enemies incredibly fast with a shotgun, but it does have some downsides, so I'd probably put it into B tier. Mini shells is up next, where we get pretty much double our maximum ammunition, a larger magazine, half the recoil, but we lose out on damage, we lose out on stun, and we lose out on stun duration. Overall, I do really like this one, and it does make the shotgun very unique, so I'd probably put this one up into A tier. Up next, we have Turret Arc for Stubby. This makes it so when you shoot a turret, you can arc a current between it and between multiple turrets if you have two of them to zap enemies. I would recommend using two if you're going to use this. It can be pretty fun, but you lose out on rate of fire and overall ammo. That is kind of a bummer to me, and I find it to be a little bit niche in a lot of situations. So I'm going to put this one into B tier because it is unique, it does change the gun, but not one of my favorites. Turret EM Discharge is next, where if you shoot your turret, it'll discharge an attack that does damage to all enemies around it. This comes at the cost of damage and magazine size. Again, not one that I really like to use, but it is kind of fun to use. So I'd probably put this one also into B tier. Now we're moving on to the big boy grenade launcher. We have Fat Boy, and our projectile moves much slower, but we get more radius in our explosion and much more damage, as well as we pretty much set off a nuke with this thing. If you want to play with something like the Fat Man from the Fallout games, definitely use this one, and it is super fun to use. Very dangerous, but super fun to use. Then we have Hyper Propellant. This one essentially turns your grenade launcher into a railgun. You have a very accurate, very long range, very fast moving projectile now. You do lose out overall on ammo and for the radius though, so you're not going to be using this much as a grenade launcher. You will be using it as a railgun, and it's probably one of my favorites. I would also put this one up into S tier. It is super fun to use. Then we have Spinning Death. Spinning Death is a lot of fun too with the Breech Cutter. You shoot it out, and then you can have your beam just sit there and spin and chop up enemies like a blender. That is amazing, and visually it looks awesome. I don't know how great it actually is for really using, but it is a lot of fun to use, and it's very unique. So S tier as well. Inferno is a much more basic and much more tame overclock compared to Spinning Death for the Breech Cutter. This just makes it so your shots now do less damage and break less armor, but can ignite enemies and are pretty much guaranteed to ignite enemies. That is really useful. It is also a much better overclock than I first thought, and I would probably put this one up into B tier because it does change the way that you use the gun a little bit. Up next we have the minigun overclocks, and this is Burning Hell. Burning Hell makes it so you have a very high chance of ricocheting shots, but you lose out on damage and you get 6 times the spread for your gun. It can be very fun to use, although it is very ineffective a lot of the time. So I would probably put this one up into A tier. If it was somewhat more effective, it could easily be S tier because it is really fun to use, but it can be frustrating when you're just firing out all of the bullets and nothing's hitting, or you're barely doing any damage to anything. Kind of the opposite of that is Leadstorm, where we get way higher damage, but we can't move when we're using this, which I kind of like this because it makes you think of how to move and how to kind of cheat around not being able to move. You use zip lines, you can use pipelines, or you could potentially use something like Doretta. so that it will physically move you. You could also, I guess, use Molly to move you, but Molly's way more sporadic than those other two. A good overclock that comes with some challenges. I'd probably put this one into A tier as well. Next we have Big Bertha for the autocannon. This gives you much higher damage, and it's a much tighter spread than it normally would be, but you lose out on overall damage and rate of fire. This turns your autocannon into a very specialized gun that's very good for killing large enemies, and I kind of enjoy that. I think I'd put this one up into A tier. And then we have Neurotoxin Payload, which is probably one of my favorite overclocks, but I don't know if I would say it's one of the most fun. It increases your AoE radius, but you lose out on AoE damage and just direct damage. But you can have a chance of poisoning enemies, and the poison does trigger pretty often, which can slow down enemies, and it can really help out the team. I'd put Neurotoxin rounds up into A tier, even though, like I said, it's probably one of my favorites. For the revolver, we have Elephant rounds. This turns your revolver pretty much into a sniper rifle. You get less ammo, less magazine size, longer reload speed, higher spread, and higher recoil with the gun for just a ton more damage. You get more spread recovery. You don't have more spread. Your spread actually comes much further down. So it is kind of like you get a sniper rifle. An Elephant rounds is a really good overclock and a pretty fun one to use. I'd put this one up into A tier. Magic bullets, on the other hand, is a super fun overclock to use. You get more ammo. Your bullets just magically hit enemies, which is great. And you can build the revolver in a very unique way. You lose out on overall damage, but that really doesn't matter in terms of practical use. And in terms of fun, this thing is easily S tier. Next, we have Electro Mindlets for the burst pistol. This one I thought would be more fun, but honestly, it's just kind of okay. You can zap enemies, which is cool, but you lose out on damage and you lose out on mag size. I was kind of disappointed in it, and I'd put it into B tier. Micro Flechettes make it so you get much more ammo, a larger magazine, less recoil, and less spread, but you lose out on damage. That's not necessarily a bad thing if you want to go with a full stunning build with the burst pistol, and that's probably the best way to use this, as well as it's pretty fun to use, especially if you just want to kind of support the team. So I'd put this one up into A tier. Lead Spray is their last one, which makes it so you get 4 times spread on your burst pistol, but you do get quite a bit more damage to it. This does make your pistol feel really strong at close range towards enemies, and pretty useless at any other range. I'd put this one up into A tier as well. I find it pretty fun. Next we have the Scout Assault Rifle overclocks with AI Stability Engine. This makes it so you have like no recoil with your gun and you have no spread with your gun. You will hit exactly where you want to hit. You also get increased damage when you hit something's weak point. You lose out on rate of fire and you lose out on damage, but this one feels so good to use, and it is really fun to use because you essentially have a laser beam at this point. And I'd put this one up into A tier. Then we have Electrifying Reload. This makes it so every shot that you hit on something, when you reload, you zap them, which can be kind of fun to use, but honestly, I was kind of disappointed by this overclock as well. I would put this one into B tier. For the M1000, we have Electrocuting Focus Shots. This makes it so your focus shots deal electric damage, but they deal less damage than they normally would. Again, another overclock that I don't really care for all that much in terms of fun. It is kind of nice being able to support the team, but I'd probably put it into B tier. And then we have Super Cooling Chamber for the M1000 as well, which increases your focus damage by a lot, but you lose out on max ammo, you lose out on focus speed, and you cannot move while you're in focus mode. All of those kind of hinder this, and it's not always the most fun to play, especially if there's a lot of enemies around, if teammates constantly are getting in the way. This one can be really frustrating to use. And I'd probably put this one into C tier because even though hitting enemies super hard is really cool and pretty fun, there's just so many other things with it that can be kind of annoying. Then we got Jumbo Shells for the double barrel. Jumbo Shells gives you way more damage, but you lose out on ammo and you lose out on reload speed. I really like the extra damage from this. It does make the shotgun feel like it hits like a truck, even though it already did hit like a truck. Then maybe this feels like it hits like 2 trucks. I'd probably put this one up into A tier. I like this one. Then we have Cryo Mindlets. This turns your submachine gun kind of into a freezing gun. It's really good if you take it with the blow-through rounds or whatever the submachine gun has, to where you can punch through enemies and then potentially freeze them as well. I like that a lot with the Cryo Mindlets, and this one is a pretty fun overclock. I'd put this one up into A tier. Embedded Detonators is another really fun one. You spray at enemies, you deal high damage to them, and then when you reload, you can explode them. It's really good, and it's really fun to use. I'd probably put this one up into S tier. It's actually quite fun. Then we got Gas Recycling. This just gives you way more damage, but you lose out on weak spot damage. you have more spread, and you can't move as fast. That can be a little bit frustrating, but it's not too bad with the submachine guns, especially if you take the run and gun tier 5, I think, for the submachine guns. Makes it so when you completely empty out the guns and you get bonus movement speed, you can kind of even it out there. And it's not too bad, but I don't know how fun it is. I think I'd put it into B tier. It's a good overclock overall. Moving on to the driller's weapons, we have Face Melter for the flamethrower. This gives you much more damage and a much faster rate of fire with the flamethrower, but you do lose out on reach and you do lose out on tank size. I do like the extra fire from this, but it's kind of just a good overclock overall. Nothing really super fun about it. I mean, I guess the extra fire is pretty fun, so I guess I'd put this one into A tier. Then we have Sticky Fuel. This makes it so you can have much longer duration of your Sticky Fuel, as well as do more damage with the Sticky Fuel at the cost of overall ammo. I really enjoy this one, and it feels quite good to use. It makes the flamethrower feel a lot more like a flamethrower too, with seeing how long the fire actually burns on the ground. Next we have the Cryo Cannon, and we have Ice Storm, which makes it so you can kill enemies that are frozen faster, but you can't freeze enemies as quick. This one seems really redundant, and I don't like it at all. It's just kind of annoying to use. It can be okay if you have another driller in your team using the Cryo Cannon, but that also seems like kind of a waste. This is going to be our first D tier, unstable overclock. And then we have Snowball. Snowball makes it so you can fire a snowball, which acts very similar to a cryo grenade that Scout has. It works really well against Magterra Plagues, although this does come at a cost of tank fuel, so it does have a cost to it, but it is really fun to use, and I'd put this one probably up into S tier. We then have Automatic Fire with the pistol that Driller has. This one turns your pistol into a submachine gun, and I like it. I would put this one up into A tier. It feels pretty good. We have explosive rounds also with the pistol. This one also feels pretty good. It feels similar to embedded detonators, but not quite as strong, although much easier to target single targets with. So pretty good, and I'd probably put this one up into A tier as well. Tranquilizer rounds makes it so you can stun enemies much easier, but you lose out on magazine size and rate of fire, but it still is kind of fun, so I'd put this one into B tier. And then our last overclocks are for the plasma pistol. Overcharger gives you much higher charge damage area, and charge radius at the cost of taking more ammunition and making your gun cool down slower. That's not too bad, and I do like shooting the plasma gun like this, so I'd put this one up into A tier. And then we have persistent plasma. This makes it so when you hit an area, it does damage over time, causing the persistent plasma and slowing enemies down. It makes for a very cool visual effect, and I really enjoy it. It does lose out on damage overall, but you make up for it with the damage over time. I'd put persistent plasma up into S tier in terms of how fun it is to use. So this is where I'd put all the overclocks in Deep Rock Galactic in just pure terms of how fun they are to use. Tell me your thoughts down below, what you would put where. You don't need to have a giant list like this. Just tell me what your favorite ones are, or your least favorite ones, or maybe even the most disappointing ones, or ones you were surprised that you enjoyed the most. Because some of these, I'm really kind of surprised that I enjoy as much as I did. Thanks everybody for watching this. I do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video and you would like to see more videos like this, be sure that you get subscribed. That way you get notifications whenever I post any of these. Thanks everybody who does that. I really do appreciate it, as well as special thanks to all the supporters of the channel. If you would like your name up here on this list, be sure to join the YouTube membership program or join my Patreon. Either way will net you a spot on this list, as well as some bonus things like early access to some of these videos and a few emotes / badges. Thanks everybody who does that. I really do appreciate it. It does help out the channel a lot. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to all of you guys next time. Till then, stay cool, and bye!